thy name, and glorify thy name. Great and marvelous are thy works, Yahuwah Almighty. Just and true are thy ways, thou King of saints. Whom shall not fear thee? Whom shall not fear thee? Whom shall not fear thee, O Yah, and glorify thy name, and glorify thy name. Nations shall come and worship him, Yahuwah Almighty. The judgment shall be then manifest, thou King of saints. Whom shall not fear thee? Whom shall not fear thee? Whom shall not fear thee, O Yah, and glorify thy name, and glorify thy name. For thou alone art holy. For thou alone art holy. For thou alone art holy. And we glorify thy name, and we glorify thy name. For thou alone art holy. For thou alone art holy. For thou alone art holy. And we glorify thy name. We glorify thy name.
still good. Y'all still tough.
One more thing for me.
Y'all still good. Y'all still tough.
One more thing for me.
Y'all still good. Y'all still tough.
One more thing for me.
Y'all still good. Y'all still tough.
One more thing for me.
Y'all still good. Y'all still tough.
One more thing for me.
Y'all still good. Y'all still tough.
One more thing for me.
Taste and see, oh taste and see. Taste and see. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's so tough.
Oh, taste and see.
So good.
Yeah, it's good.
And if it never did,
One more thing for me.
still good. Y'all still tough.
One more thing for me.
Y'all still good. Y'all still tough.
One more thing for me.
Y'all still good. Y'all still tough.
One more thing for me.
Y'all still good. Y'all still tough. 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 Y'all still good. Y'all still Y'all still good. Y'all still tough.
Yeah, she was. Her testimony.
Y'all still good.
People,
Practice. Come on, practice. He's never too young. He's never
I
too
just
young.
have my age.
He's never too young to learn something.
Alright, y'all. Once again, Shalom Kim, let's go ahead and get into it. We got the title of today's lesson, what they gonna call it. Something we're just gonna walk through real quick and be done with. Strongholds of a nation. Something that we've considered for a little while here now. Amongst leadership, talk about where we are. Here we are. Before we get into it though, let's go ahead and get into our slogan. Alright, here we go. 1, 2, 3. We are
Working to walk through obedience to the Torah together, building an Arba and Anba from the Ab to the Ra, in Ruach Yeshua ben Yahuwah.
That's right. Ooh, y'all sound good when y'all said that just now. That was real. Just like praise before. Sound like 18,000 people, but it ain't number 8. You know what I'm saying? That's what's up. All right, so here we go. Today we are we look to explore some of the strongholds that plague the people of the book, and try to get an understanding on how we can look to remedy these behaviors according to the Bible. All right. All right. We're gonna make it happen. We're gonna make it happen. One of them we're gonna look at is the plague of entertainment. Okay. We're gonna look at one of those. We're gonna look at the plague of overindulging in the realm of calorie intake. I'm just trying to say that as best as I possibly could. Y'all can understand that. Yes. All right. Whatever they got. That's a biblical term for you. Y'all know what it is. But yeah, the plague of indulging in the realm of calorie intake. All right. And also drug and alcohol abuse, right? Drug and alcohol abuse. All right. We'll get to that hopefully in time. But today we're gonna deal with the plague of entertainment. All right, plague of entertainment. The plague of entertainment. Okay. Before we get there, let's go ahead and remember something that was already spoken of a couple of Shabbats ago. As we say this, we're gonna say this one all together. It comes out of Shemot or Exodus 20, verse 3. What does it say? You shall Elohim before me. And we went through this a while back. It was a while back. Elohim. Elohim can be what?
Oh, God. Yeah.
It can be a God. We'll put you go there.
It's a system of life.
Could be a system of life. Or a system, excuse me, and a way of life. And then also a way of life, yes. And of course, like you said, like a little God. You can see this, you find this in Blue Letter, right? So I'll go through it. But I'm glad we all said that together. So that's going to be the theme of what I pray the Most High sees upon our foreheads. If we had no other gods before Him, we had none other. Okay, that's the. Whew, that was good talk earlier. I'm telling y'all, that's good talk earlier. All right. So another one. I'm just gonna get somebody. I'm gonna get 3 people to read this. That way we don't get nothing kicked off. I'm not even gonna say why. I want y'all to say this. Say, Mac, what does that say real loud?
Fair use.
Oh, that says, thank you, I appreciate that. Leah, what does that say real loud?
Fair use.
Oh, that says fair use. Leah, what does that say real loud for me?
Fair use.
Oh, it says fair use. Okay, thank you.
Say it first.
I think that's understood. Okay, I think we all got that. Hallelujah. That's okay. And that's the reason for that is going to be there.
And we say fair use and turn.
Oh. Hold on, let me turn up the. That was on me. I should do the sound check prior to. That's on me. It's in the back, right? So I'm like, I ain't done it in a minute. You got it?
Yeah.
Next we done this in my own life.
Texas knows.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I could just do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
You need more?
Probably. I don't know what we're going to see.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead some more. We're going to get some more. Go about 20 more. 20 more. Get up to 6.
400. You see it? No, wait, Texas.
Oh, no.
Texas,
Yeah.
wait. Go just use it from here.
Appreciate it.
The original remote children.
What other body?
Woo! pull it and go off, make sure you turn it back.
All right.
Buzzer.
Now,
Here are 5 crazy ways that social media and the internet are affecting your brain right now. Can't log off? Surprisingly, 5 to 10% of internet users are actually unable to control how much time they spend online. Though it's a psychological addiction as opposed to a substance addiction, brain scans of these people actually show a similar impairment of regions that those with drug dependence have. Specifically, there's a clear degradation of white matter in the regions that control emotional processing, attention, and decision making. Because social media provides immediate rewards with very little effort required, your brain begins to rewire itself, making you desire these stimulations, and beginning to crave more of this neurological excitement after each interaction. Sounds a little like a drug, right? We also see a shift when looking at multitasking. You might think that those who use social media or constantly switch between work and websites are better at multitasking, but studies have found that when comparing heavy media users to others, they perform much worse during task switching tests. Increased multitasking online reduces your brain's ability to filter out interferences and can even make it harder for your brain to commit information to memory. Like when your phone buzzes in the middle of productive work. Or wait, did it even buzz? Phantom vibration syndrome is a relatively new psychological phenomenon where you think you felt your phone go off, but it didn't. In one study, 89% of test subjects said they experienced this at least once every 2 weeks. It would seem that our brains now perceive an itch as an actual vibration from our phone. As crazy as it seems, technology has begun to rewire our nervous system, and our brains are being triggered in a way they never have before in history. Social media also triggers the release of dopamine, the feel-good chemical. Using MRI scans, scientists found that the reward centers in people's brains are much more active when they're talking about their own views as opposed to listening to others. Not so surprising, we all love talking about ourselves, right? But it turns out that while 30 to 40% of face-to-face conversations involve communicating our own experiences, about 80% of social media communication is self-involved. The same part of your brain related to orgasms, motivation, and love are stimulated by your social media use, and even more so when you know you have an audience. Our body is physiologically rewarding us for talking about ourselves online. But
that's out there. All right, that's already a handful. That's just 2 minutes. Oh, I bet you didn't know that. 2 minutes. You ready for this? Now, how many of y'all have ever experienced that? Now, what's weird is I experienced it, but I thought I was like, man, I'm just tripping.
Yeah.
Like your phone is out on you.
Oh, yeah.
You obviously something touched you, and I thought, and a vibration happens, and I'm thinking to myself, dang, am I going crazy? It might be my head twitch before my time. You know what I'm saying? Before I'm 70 or something like that. You know what I'm saying? All kinds of stuff goes through my mind. And I'm like. Then I find out I come across this. It's called, some type of vibration or something. Phantom syndrome. Phantom vibration syndrome. That's all. It's rewiring. Phones now are rewiring our brains and how it responds to a certain sensation. That is phenomenal to me. Anyway.
Can't you just turn the vibrate off on your phone?
Yeah, I can, but I keep it because sometimes I don't like the noise whenever I'm around other people. I'm in the office and setting sometimes. So
Understood.
All right, now we got that little bit of science, or whatever you want to call it, social science out the way. Let's look at this. Come on, Hebrews. Let's look at this Hebrew. What do we have first? Right, I know it's been a minute. Yeah, it's been a minute. Excuse me for that. You know, it is what it is.
I didn't know.
Then what you got next?
Oh, that's Zadie.
Does that look like Zadie to y'all? Okay, we got the Zadie, and then what else we got? The Dalit, absolutely correct. That's going to come out to Metzai. All right, that's going to be your Strong's 4679. All right, it's going to be a strong golden form of 4679. And we go with the definition. Now it's interesting. Looked at the verse that kind of kicked off this lesson. It's in Greek, but we had to try to find the Hebrew equivalent, right? So this is as close I believe I can get to the Hebrew equivalent. So one of the words for stronghold is metzai. And we have it here as what? It's just simply a fort, something that's fortified, a castle, right? Something that is structured, if you will, and that's as a covert for ambush. So it's something that's fortified, something that won't go away. You know, something that's structured, solid. in the lexicon, what do we have here? We have summit, right? Type of a mountain access. And then also at the bottom we have a fortress, a mountain or a castle. So when we're thinking about this next verse we're going to get into, you got to think the idea of how hard it is for something like this to be cast down. It's not easy, right? That's kind of the idea. It's not easy, right? All right.
Is that the same name as the religious group that is like terrorists?
Messiah, yeah. Man, that's crazy. I didn't even think of that. That's it could be. I mean, yeah.
Stronghold, fortress. That's what I mean.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
are.
the Messiah,
They
yeah.
don't stop.
That's what
Yeah,
they think they are. They probably call themselves that, a fortress. You can't stop. Wow, that's interesting. That's good observation. Excellent observation. All right, so here we go. Let's go ahead and get into the paleo quiz. All right, y'all know the deal. We got the meal. So we got water, mighty, massive, mini chaos, right? To come from like water. Like water comes down from chaos. Then we got that zadi, official, to pull toward something inescapable, desirable, trouble. Harvest of righteous, to hunt. And we got that dot, a door, a pathway, a way of life, a movement. So based off of what it is that y'all all just saw, that's the way I wanted to approach it going forward. Now you have the working definition in your mind, so then what does it look like to you in the paleo?
To come from an inescapable movement.
Come from an inescapable movement.
Or a mighty desire, a way of life.
I think
Mighty desire, we think about strong, we think about a mighty.
to come from a righteous path. A path. Yeah, to come from a righteous path.
That's interesting too. So you think a righteous path.
Yeah.
Where you get right,
Righteous.
yep, you get righteous in there too, okay. Interesting.
Because we look at it, I get the same thing Leah said with the desire, because when we're looking at
And I like that actually. I actually, go ahead.
what we saw our example in your video, that desire,
It is.
dopamine release, that
Yeah. What you got, man?
Mighty pull toward a path.
Oh. Okay.
path could be devious.
Because what we're gonna see here in a minute towards the end is, yes, you're thinking of it in one way, but what about, okay, so this is why now when I'm listening to what Mag just now said, and of course what you said, I'm thinking, oh, okay, because this is what I ended up saying. If everybody's done, was chaotic, desirable way of life. But even me, that to me, going forward, I could have said something different. I could have said something like a mighty, or the path that you just brought up.
Yeah, like that's what a lot of people who.
No, what'd you say, Mac? What'd you say?
I said mighty pull toward the path.
Yes, mighty pull toward the path.
Right.
Yeah, that's something that, because, and I'm with you too with the righteous aspect of it, but what happens if it's not righteous?
What if it's devious?
Right, what if it's devious? That's because I'm with, Right. So this is the verse that got kicked out, right? This is, I'm going to get you to read that for me. Lydia, please.
For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through Yah to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of Yah, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Mashiach, and having in a readiness to revenge all disobedience when your obedience is fulfilled.
Yes. It's a lot in there, right? One, we already see the idea of strongholds, then we're talking about casting them things down. Because in this situation, it's not just physical, but obviously we see that it's spiritual. So most of the other scriptures that deal with strongholds, it's straight up like it's talking about a mountain. It's talking about a fortress. Like it's not getting really at anything spiritual, this is like the only verse that I found that gets an idea of it being spiritual. Hey, you're casting down these imaginations, casting them down. You're taking every thought into captivity, okay, to the obedience of Most High-Yah, which is, he was a very obedient person. Can you turn it back up one more time, please? Yep, all the way to. Alright, man. Cool. Oh, she said, make sure we gonna hear it. Alright, let's see.
You probably don't have a problem playing video games or browsing social media on your phone. In fact, I have no doubt you could sit in front of a screen and do both of those activities for 2 hours or even longer without breaking your concentration. But what about half an hour of studying? Oof, that might be too hard. How about working on your side business for another hour? Doesn't sound too appealing. Even though you logically know that studying, exercising, building a business, or something equally productive will bring you more benefits in the long run, you still prefer watching TV, playing video games, and scrolling through social media. One might argue that it's obvious why. One activity is easy and doesn't require much effort, while the other activity is difficult and it requires you to apply yourself. But some people seem to have no problem studying, exercising, or working on their side projects regularly. Which begs the question, why are some people more motivated to tackle difficult things? And is there a way to make doing difficult things easy? To answer this question, we need to look at this brain neurotransmitter, dopamine. Dopamine is often considered a pleasure molecule, but that's not quite what it does. Dopamine is what makes us desire things, and it's that desire that gives us the motivation to get up and do stuff. If you're not sure how powerful dopamine is, let me introduce you to a few experiments neuroscientists did on rats. The researchers implanted electrodes in the brains of rats. Whenever the rat pulled a lever, the researchers stimulated the rat's reward system in the brain. The result was that the rats developed a craving so strong that they kept pulling the lever over and over for hours. The rats would refuse to eat or even sleep. They would just keep pressing the lever until they would drop from exhaustion. But then the process was reversed. The researchers blocked the release of dopamine in the brain's reward center. As a result, rats became so lethargic that even getting up to get a drink of water was not worth the effort. They wouldn't eat, they didn't want to mate, they didn't crave anything at all. You could say that the rats lost all will to live. However, if food was placed directly in their mouths, the rats would still eat and enjoy the food. They just didn't have the motivation to get up and do it themselves. You would think that it's thirst or hunger that motivates us to get food or water, but there's also dopamine that plays a key role here. Those rat experiments might be extreme cases, but you can see similar effects dopamine has in humans and in our daily lives. In fact, your brain develops priorities in large part based on how much dopamine it's expecting to get. If an activity releases too little dopamine, you won't have much motivation to do it. But if an activity...
Why is it always gonna be rats?
Rats.
You need this remote?
They're coming after me. Already they're coming after me.
Because you anticipated that food will make you feel good, even if it actually makes you feel worse. That's because your brain doesn't even care if the high dopamine activity is damaging to you. It just wants more of it. A stereotypical example would be someone who's a drug addict. He knows that what he's doing is not good for him, but also wants to get more of that drug. Besides getting you high, cocaine and heroin release unnatural amounts of dopamine, which in turn makes you crave them even more. Of course, it has to be noted that nearly everything releases some amount of dopamine. Even drinking water when you're thirsty does. But the highest dopamine release happens when you get a reward randomly. One such example is playing on a slot machine in a casino. Even if you've only been losing money until that point, you eventually expect to get a bigger reward. You just don't know when it could happen. And in today's digital society, we're flooding our brains with unnaturally high amounts of dopamine on a daily basis, even if we don't know it. Some examples of high dopamine behaviors include scrolling through social media websites, playing video games, watching internet pornography, etc. We anticipate some sort of reward with each one of those behaviors. That's why we're constantly checking our phones. We expect to see a text message or some other notification, and we know that eventually we're going to receive it. We're becoming like those rats pulling the lever, trying to get a new dopamine hit. And you might think, oh, so what? It's not like it's harming me in any way. But you would be wrong. Our bodies have a biological system called homeostasis. It means that our body likes to keep internal physical and chemical conditions at a balanced level. Whenever an imbalance occurs, our body adapts to it. Let me give you an example. When it's cold outside, our body temperature falls. As a result, we start shivering to generate heat and warm the body. However, when it's hot outside, our body temperature rises, and we start sweating to lose some of that heat. Essentially, our body is looking to maintain temperature of around 37 degrees Celsius or 98 degrees Fahrenheit, no matter what. But there is another way homeostasis manifests itself, and that is through tolerance. For example, someone who rarely drinks alcohol will get drunk really fast. But someone who drinks on a regular basis will have to drink more alcohol because their body has developed a tolerance to it. Essentially, it takes more and more alcohol to make them drunk because they've become less sensitive to its effects. And it's not much different with dopamine. Your body tries to maintain homeostasis, so it down-regulates your dopamine receptors. Essentially, your brain gets used to having high levels of dopamine, and those levels become your new normal. Thus, you develop a dopamine tolerance. This can be a huge problem because the things that don't give you as much dopamine don't interest you any longer. And it's much more difficult to motivate yourself to do them. They feel boring and less fun because they don't release as much dopamine compared to the things that do release it in high amounts. That's why people tend to prefer playing video games or browsing the internet compared to studying or working on their business. Video games make us feel good and comfortable as they release a lot of dopamine. Sadly, things like working hard or reading release it in lower amounts.
I think that's where I stopped on this one. I don't know. I get the feeling it seems a little bit like it's a joke, right? It's a change in understanding why our brains do what it does. But I mean, it's a reality, guys. We're targeted like nobody's business. Targeted like nobody's business. So that's something we have to keep in mind. But what does the scripture say to this, right? The scripture deal with this. We got Yehukanan, Rishon, or 1 John 2:15-17. You should read that for me with Elder Uzi.
Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh and the lust of the eyes and the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of the world. And the world passes away, and the lust thereof. But he that does the will of Yahuwah abides forever.
The world is doing what?
Passing away.
Yeah. Those little dopamine hits is really worth it.
No.
It's fleeting.
It's fleeting, yeah.
It's fleeting, yeah. But the will of the Most High abides forever. It's interesting how, like you said, working on the business and working on reading a book. When actually, I want to say maybe 100 years ago, that was the thing to do, was to read a book. That's why this one book I read, I'm not going to care about to say the author, but y'all can read it if you want to, American the Beautiful. He talks about how 150 years ago, or 120 years ago, something like that, are just the common person would know way more stuff about what's going on in everyday life. I don't care if you went to the poorest of the poor, they still were aware of things because they all read. They read a lot. And it was the thing to do, right? It was really probably the most stimulating thing to do.
Or somebody read to them.
At least. Oh yeah, if you want to talk about our people, yeah. And what was going on. I'm just talking about society in general.
But think of all the photos that we see from the early 1900s when radio was really popular. The pictures show them just mesmerized, by by the radio and the sound.
But it's interesting how even though people read for stimulation, it's the better alternative
Yeah.
for the dopamine hit versus what we have today in our pockets. It's just a better stimulation. It does more for your brain. Not only does it develop it, but it gives you the right amount of release, right? When you read a good story, it makes you laugh towards the end. That's a dopamine hit, you guys. But you're building it up versus just just straight sugar. You know what I'm saying? That's all we have to think about. Like cane sugar, and I'm thinking just straight processed whatever. Like that's what we have. We just have straight processed sugar in our pockets. I don't know. Maybe we'll get to the other part. The second one we'll deal with it. But yeah, that's the idea. Now this was given to this was also given from King. He does some research and he looked into the word entertainment. All right, and he went ahead and went to etymology, I think, .com. You know, etymolonline.com, and you have the first part of entertainment is intention. So that's pretty easy, right? You're entering in something or going in the midst of, that's what we underline, the midst of or among something. Whenever you're dealing with entertainment. You have to say I or whatever. This is for entertainment. But yeah, enter. That's the root of it, yes.
It's Latin.
Yep, it is Latin. Yeah. And then the other aspect of it, tainment, right? Tainment. What other word do we use for tainment?
Containment.
There you go. Containing. So you're entering containment, or you're entering a hold and a grasp, that's what you underline. And it's sort of a possession. It's almost like the same word we just now read for massage, yes. For a stronghold. It's almost like you can relate entertainment to stronghold. This ain't like, I mean, y'all read the same thing I'm reading. So it's this is kind of interesting.
It's like that.
Yeah. This is wild, man. All right. So that's it. We got a lot more to go. So let's go ahead and deal with this scripturally, right? Keep and Rishon or 1 Peter 5 and 8. You know, we're gonna start turning this thing because we can diagnose all day, right? You go to the doctor, you're gonna get diagnosed. True, sure, fine, dandy. But at some point, what is he gonna do, or she gonna do? What is that doctor gonna do? There you go. There has to be some sort of level of finding out what it is we gotta do to fix it. Gotta be a solution, right? So we'll kind of deal with both, but it'll be sort of a middle part, and then we're gonna start dealing more with solutions, okay? All right. Go ahead and read the Holy Spirit real loud, please.
Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walks about, seeking whom he may devour.
And we've seen that a few times. You know, what does be sober look like to you?
Be aware.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it is. Now, what is vigilant? Anybody else?
Speak higher.
At first, the time don't be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. That's all I think. So. Now, what did you say, Mother? What did you say? Pay attention. That's essentially that's what it is. It's like it's like being aware. The other one is being awake. So it's like be aware and then be awake, right? Because your adversary is like a roaring lion.
Vigilant, when I see the word vigilant, I always think about vigilante.
Yeah.
Right? And the only reason I say that is because they are persistent. Like they are aware of what's going on. Like if you look at all of those characters or whatever, they have either some sign that somebody throws up in the air that they can see,
right?
Like so that they know to go help the people or to go save the people. But you wouldn't know that if you weren't vigilant. And you wouldn't see the Batman sign, or you wouldn't. So that's why that when I see that word, it makes me think of like the awareness that vigilantes have.
They on top of it at all times.
Yeah, they on it.
They wake up just
Yeah, I'm like, that was spit.
you have me about the word vigil. What people do when they're outside. Right?
Yeah.
You know, it's something they murder up all night, right?
Yeah,
it's interesting. Alright. Alright, here go another one. Somebody needs to be vigilant, I know. Yeah, that's the first time I saw that too. I hope that volume does turn back up again. So it's still there?
Surprise, surprise. Premium streaming services are preying on our psychological weaknesses and they know it. Rather than thinking about them as part of millennial dating rituals, we should think of streaming services as specialist all-consuming algorithms trying to sell you more of what they've already gotten you addicted to. You don't just like The Office. You might actually have a problem. Crystal, have you ever binge watched any of my shows? Wow. According to a 2016 survey, over 90% of millennials and 88% of those in the Gen Z category are engaged in binge watching a TV series. And according to Netflix, their users are streaming over 140 million hours worth of content a day. So why is it that we would rather spend an entire day on our couch, drowning in takeout with the blinds down, watching a new season of Stranger Things in one sitting, over walking your dog, or doing the laundry, or seeing other human beings? Well, it's because binge watching has essentially made you an addict. And I know that sounds like a stretch, but it's kind of true. Everyone's gotten into a fight with their partner over them watching the show without the other person. I guarantee someone is emotionally disturbed enough. And that is literally front page. Netflix and chill? Clinical psychologists have said that binge watching marathons of your favorite show trigger a release of dopamine in the brain. And when you're engaged in any activity that triggers a release of dopamine, the chemical that gives the body a natural high of sorts, the brain reinforces and motivates continued engagement in that activity. Your brain is telling you not to stop, so you don't. And that's how experts have seen people build up something resembling an addiction to TV shows. The neural pathways that lead to drug and sex addiction are the pathways carrying the same pleasure chemicals throughout the brain during marathon sessions of TV. Much like Facebook and Instagram being designed to prey on our psychological need for validation from others, streaming services have found a way to exploit our psychological need to complete things. Humans seriously struggle with unresolved storylines or communications. This is the driving force behind what makes us want to finish a book we've been reading, a long saga of movies that haven't been good since the first installment, or a TV series. Which explains why the entire internet complained about Game of Thrones during the entire 8th season, but couldn't stop watching it because we just had to see how it would end. When you combine that with the fact that our brains project real emotions onto characters and events on screen that we're invested in or identify with, you're left with a person who is not only experiencing a mild high, but is now emotionally immersed in fiction and has a very real psychological predisposition and desire to see it end. And that person will put off living in the real world to see how a pretend one comes to a close. Especially since with streaming platforms, you're not forced to wait a week and return to your life like you are on broadcast TV. And all of this coupled together with the time commitment of binging 10 episodes of your favorite emotionally manipulating shows contribute to the reason why you're left feeling drained after you finish the latest season. This borders on withdrawal because your brain's level of stimulation drops drastically in a matter of seconds when the credits appear on screen. And it won't surprise you that a study done by the University of Toledo found that out of 408 participants, 142 of them self-identified as binge watchers. And those 142 binge watchers reported higher levels of stress, anxiety, and depression than the 266 people who didn't identify as being binge watchers. And these streaming platforms know all of this. That's why the CEO of Netflix, Reed Hastings, said in a 2017 statement that their biggest competitor is sleep. And mean, we have all had that. And that's why streaming services release of shows at once, and all the episodes have cliffhangers. Because cliffhangers cause stress, and your brain tells you how to relieve that stress. Just wait that extra 5 seconds and click skip the intro. So, in conclusion, binge watch responsibly. It's not a matter of if you binge watch something, it's just a matter of how long you'll binge watch for.
So that was another one, right? That was another one. Appreciate it, Kenny. Appreciate it. Yeah. 140 million hours combined, of course. Days. That's a lot.
That's just Netflix, man. Sure. If we look at YouTube.
Oh yeah. We have. Yeah, and it's funny. You're gonna still see the YouTube icon, right? But I mean, they don't really rag on it as much, even though it does the same thing. Because you can get on YouTube and just straight BS. Like you get on, you can't. You get on there. You're not looking at documentaries. No, you're just sort of looking at the same old. Not nothing that's gonna actually benefit you. So absolutely. I don't take it off the scale either. All right, let's repeat it again because I think it always bears repeating once we see this. Once we see this, it bears repeating. Let's do it all together. 1, 2, 3. You shall have no other being before me. Gotta say it. It's gotta be a part of you. Has to. This has to be a part of you. You can't consider, oh, I can, do X, Y, and Z, and I think I'm not, because everybody's with that. People walk away from it. That's exactly what they want. They got you whatever you say that. That's literally addicts. When addicts talk like that, guess what? That literally means they got you. Now, here's the other aspect of it, right? Well, I'll say it towards the end. Just remind me to talk about what I think about usage. What I think about usage may be different, all right? I think there's something to remedy after looking at all this. All right, we're going to continue it on. All right? We okay? We're going to continue it on. Yeah, I know. I'm fighting somebody. All right.
That's the competition.
Yeah, for real. Do you think if it was upstairs, it would still be the same or not? Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. I don't know. Okay. Cool. Alright, here's the next one. Take a breath. Alright. We all it's okay. I gotta adhere to the same information as well. Okay. Alright. Oh, you turn it down? Don't even worry about turning it down no more. Okay. I see you now. Oh, yeah, no.
So we now know that many of the major social media companies hire individuals called attention engineers who borrow principles from Las Vegas Casino gambling among other places to try to make these products as addictive as possible. That is the desired use case of these products, is that you use it in an addictive fashion because that maximizes the profit that can be extracted from your attention and data.
It literally is a product now where I think we have created tools that are ripping apart the social fabric of how society works. That is truly where we are.
The way the technologist Jeremy Lemaire puts it is that these companies offer you shiny treats in exchange for minutes of your attention and bytes of your personal data, which can then be packaged up and sold.
What happened is that the attention economy and this race for attention got more and more competitive. And the more competitive it got to get people's attention on, say, a news website, the more they need to add these design principles, these more manipulative design tactics, as ways of holding on to your attention.
You don't realize it, but you are being programmed.
Social media tools are designed to be addictive. The actual desired use case of these tools is that you fragment your attention as much as possible throughout your waking hours. That's how these tools are designed to use. Well, we have a growing amount of research which tells us that if you spend large portions of your day in a state of fragmented attention, so large portions of your day where you're constantly breaking up your attention, take a quick glance to just check and just quickly look at Instagram, that this can permanently reduce your capacity for concentration. I'm especially worried about this when you look at the younger generation coming up, which is the most saturated with technology.
It's very addictive because if you hold this regime enough, you will win. You never know which hole will reward you.
That's an addictive behavior, and it's dopamine that is driving that addiction. So what happens with social media is Robert Sapolsky, who did the foundational research on this at Stanford, calls it the magic of maybe. When you look at your phone and maybe there's a text there and maybe there's not, and you don't know, when it shows up, that high you get, that's dopamine. It's the magic of maybe. Maybe it'll be there, maybe it won't. When it shows up, you get a 400% spike in dopamine. That is roughly the same amount of dopamine as you're getting from cocaine, slightly less than an extremely addictive drug like cocaine. And that's what's happening.
We really care what other people think of us. So for example, when you upload a new profile photo of yourself on Facebook, that's a moment where our mind is very vulnerable to knowing what other people think of my new profile photo. And so when we get new likes on our profile photo, Facebook, knowing this, could actually message me and say, oh, you have new likes on your profile photo. And it knows that we'll be vulnerable to that moment because we all really care about when we're tagged in a photo or when we have a new profile photo. And the thing is that they control the dial, the technology companies control the dial for when and how long your profile photo shows up on other people's news feeds. So they can orchestrate it so that other people more often end up liking your profile photo over a delayed period of time, for example, so that you end up having to more frequently come back and see what the new likes are.
And it's literally root-rowing our brain. Even social media, the challenge is, with these terms like Facebook depression and everything, because it's that. This is social media depression because whereas everyone's looking at their feed and they're comparing their lives to other people, their highlights of other people's lives.
Wow.
And there's actually less life satisfaction, more sadness, depression, and stuff like that.
And it's interesting because if you think about things that, routinely produce a lot of dopamine, alcohol, for example, there's a drinking, right? We have a drinking. Alcohol releases a whole lot of dopamine. It makes you feel really, really good. We say, okay, you can have that, but you've got to wait. You've got to be 21 years old. We don't do that with social media. We're, essentially putting highly addictive drugs into the hands of kids before they have any actual defenses against them. And what you're seeing with internet addiction, with social media addiction, is the same thing over and over. It's people trying to change their state of consciousness with a device, trying to get at the underlying neurochemistry, and it's very, very cool.
So I would say the problem with the gadgets is, they're amazing things, is that they approximately interfere with medium to long-term goals, I would say. And so I think the first thing you have to do to bring them under control is figure out what it is that this is interfering with. It has to be something important. So you think, well, I want to do something important. What is that? Personal, maybe you want to have a relationship, you want to get married, you want to have kids, you want to have a career that's meaningful, you want to have a life, you want to have an Abrahamic adventure and be the father of nations, let's say. Well, you can't be ratting away on your cell phone and doing that. And so I think part of it is to set your sights high and make a plan and figure out who you would be and see if obsessive utilization of smartphone fits into that vision of nobility. And it will partly because they're unbelievably powerful communication devices. But so often it's for lack of something better to do, and it also interferes.
Imagine when you take that to the extreme, where bad actors can now manipulate large swaths of people to do anything you want. It's a really, really bad state of affairs. And we compound the problem, right? We curate our lives around this perceived sense of perfection because we get rewarded with these short-term signals, hearts, likes, thumbs up, and we conflate that with value and we conflate it with truth. And instead what it really is fake, brittle popularity. That's short-term and that leaves you even more, and admit it, vacant and empty before you did it. Because then it forces you into this vicious cycle where you're like, what's the next thing I need to do now? because I need it back. Think about that compounded by 2 billion people. And then think about how people react to the perceptions of others. It's really bad.
So we know from the research literature that the more you use social media, the more likely you are to feel lonely or isolated. We know that the constant exposure to your friends' carefully curated positive portrayals of their life can lead you to feel inadequate and can increase rates of depression. And something I think we're going to be hearing more about in the near future is that there's a fundamental mismatch between the way our brains are wired and this behavior of exposing yourself to stimuli with intermittent rewards throughout all of your waking hours. But it's one thing to spend a couple hours at the slot machine in Las Vegas, but if you bring a slot machine with you and you pull that handle all day long from when you wake up to when you go to bed, we're not wired from it. It short circuits the brain. We're starting to find that it has actual cognitive consequences, one of them being this sort of pervasive background hum of anxiety.
Most of them. I know. The only reason why I need to saturate you with this information is so you don't forget it. So to understand that the way that the brain learns is through what? Over and over, and I have to. Otherwise, we'll leave out here. Alright, just go back to the norm, because that's what dopamine is gonna do. You know, just like any other drug, right? It's gonna let you forget the other stuff that takes care of your body, your life, and all of that. It's just gonna focus more on how do I get the next hit. That's the purpose of it too. Now, like I said, still reserve my opinion here towards the end. All right, so here we go with the next scripture. You gotta saturate this in our mind as well. All right, let's start turning this thing around. Let's not say that we're victims to this. Let's call ourselves what the Most High calls us, the chosen generation. Hallelujah. We're gonna say this out. We're gonna say this out together. Keep your own 1 Peter 2, 9 through 11. Let's go 1, 2, 3. But ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, and a peculiar people, that ye should show forth the praises of him who has called you out of the darkness into his marvelous light, which in time past were not a people, but are now a people of Yahuwah, which had not obtained mercy, but now have obtained mercy. Dearly beloved, I beseech you as strangers and pilgrims, abstain from fleshly lust, which war against the soul. And I hope that saturates in your mind over and over. That no, you're not subject to this. You are a chosen generation. You're a royal priesthood. Hallelujah. You're a holy nation. They didn't know this. You're a peculiar people. Okay? Let that saturate your soul. Let that give you the dopamine hit that you need. Or want. I should say, or desire. Alright? On to the next one. But this one's gonna kind of sort of this honestly, believe it, before then it was kind of everybody. But now this will finally get to the y'all. So. Alright.
I have worked in multiple different areas with teens, children's hospital, nonprofit. I met these group of girls when they were freshmen, and I have been with them now for 4 years, so they're seniors. They have access to me 24/7. Like, what's the max amount you think in one day in the past 3 years? Like, if you ever picked the one day you spent the most time on your phone, how long do you think it was?
Oh, I'd say 18 hours, maybe.
Say 5. The last 2 months, it's been 8, 9.
10, 11 hours a day.
Yeah, maybe like 12.
So in the past 10 years or so, the time they're spending on has skyrocketed. On average, maybe 7 hours a day. It's a lot of time when you also have to do school and sleep and eat. 7 hours a day is like a work shift.
There's a lot to do on your phone. Like, you can text people, you can play games, take videos, like take pictures. Like, there's a lot to do.
We've always had these things that captured our attention, but there is a certain level of precision with which today's technology hones in on neurology and the way that we are wired.
Social media and other internet platforms make their money
by keeping users engaged, and so they've hired the greatest engineering and tech minds to get users to stay longer inside of their apps and on their websites.
I use Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok.
2 Instagram accounts.
I can just scroll for hours on end. I use Instagram, Twitter.
Instagram, definitely.
My favorite Snapchat. If I was to delete Snapchat, like, I don't think I would hang out. I don't know what's going on with Snapchat. There's stuff called TikTok.
The social media games like TikTok and Fortnite.
Yeah, I look at some of my phone after being there for 15 minutes and spend like 10 hours.
Scroll through Instagram.
And then I end up watching other people's videos for like 5 hours on end.
Watch Netflix for a time, and then like go off Netflix, check Snapchat, check Instagram, go back on Netflix. I really do.
Somebody do. Well, you know, I can only control what I control.
Makai thing.
I don't know what that was. Makai Motown. Joking. Alright, we back. Yeah. I know the enemy don't want it. Alright, so this one is one of those. Alright.
Refresh your newsfeed that operates like a slot machine and has the same kind of addictive qualities that keep people in Las Vegas focused.
One of the central issues of Skinner's philosophy of behaviorism is that just like the pigeon, man is a predictable animal. Gambling systems have a schedule we call a ratio. That explains why people gamble. It's like when say people gamble to hurt themselves, destroy themselves. Some people say they can gamble with excitement and so on. Nonsense. You gamble because there's a certain schedule built into the gambling device or system. In a horse race, these same schedule will make a pathological gambler out of a pigeon as well as out of a person.
It's interesting raising kids 5 years apart. You know, John could leave his phone sitting somewhere away. We've noticed that Jack's generation is of kids, they can't do that. They're so completely tied to their phone and they don't even know life without a telephone.
Typically when I get bored, I do pick up my phone. I tend to switch apps every 30 seconds to a minute.
They will literally melt their brains before they got off the device.
When we think about traditional drug use, we know that the age of first use, the earlier it happens, the greater likelihood for addiction. And so think about, with children, their brain is developing, and if they are not having balance in how they're using this, and it's developing at a younger age, I just, question how that will continue to impact them for years to come.
Young folks tend to have their reward sensitivity and their social sensitivity develop much earlier than their ability to regulate these areas in their brain. Throughout childhood, the brain experiences rapid maturation. It begins in areas responsible for basic perception and memory, way in the back of the brain, and it ends in the front of the brain. And in the front of the brain, that's the areas that are most important for having us regulate our responses to rewards and our responses to social feedback. And the highest part of that doesn't really develop into the 20s.
So my biggest is when they get older, that they never put the same out, and that they're so.
No, go ahead. Like that's the mark. People are like, wait, like, cause I've talked to people before, when I was on deployment and stuff. They're like, his physical mark. I'm like, it will come to a point of a physical mark, but before that, you gotta know.
You gotta know.
If you don't know how
to be able to reason and know.
Yeah, it's like if I'm downrange and I'm trying to defend my side and Al Qaeda, like, they not wearing Air Force BUs, bro. They ain't on your side. Like, you ain't gonna, if you can't perceive who the enemy and your ally is, then then you're cannonfire.
Oh yeah. You're not. Alright.
They're so disinterested with connecting with other people, like in person, that it negatively affects them.
Being a leader 14 years ago was easier. The way kids are has definitely changed. They have less or no coping skills. They are also harder to kind of break that outer shell and talk about hard things. They don't want to. or they don't know how. It's wild. They really just don't know how to get there.
One of the greatest consequences of screen time addiction is just the lack of social development, social skills development, being able to connect with other people.
We're seeing a lot more of that as we are becoming more aware of what social media does to our ability to have empathy and to interact with others and to see their social cues, understand their social cues, and react accordingly. Of course, seeing the difference that it's making, but the kids aren't.
The disconnect of even just seeing with his friends. I mean, it is how they connect, but how connected are they if they're all getting depressed?
Yeah, well, they don't have anything to compare it with.
Yeah.
Like I said, we have a comparison because we grew up differently, because we didn't even have the option.
We're incredibly social creatures. That's actually what separates us, not our intelligence, but our ability to work together in communities, to thrive as humans. And a huge chunk of your brain is devoted towards just understanding people's moment-to-moment facial expressions. Because social signals that come very rapidly are incredibly important to us, even if in the moment we're not totally realizing how important those social signals are.
Would any of you guys say that you struggle or have struggled with anxiety or depression in high school?
Depression? Yeah, usually. No?
Yes, definitely. I have an entire friend group who has lost talking to each other due to their connection with depression.
Because they both are prone to anxiety and depression, I can't pinpoint whether or not it has anything to do with their device.
He's addicted to some games, I'm addicted to some games. Sometimes when we don't get it, we cry, we throw a fit.
I notice that my anxiety ranks up when I'm on my phone more, but not from like any specific thing, just kind of the more time I spend in my head, the worse off I get.
A statement that I've been making at my talks with high schoolers is, don't you all just sort of feel like every moment of every single day we're all living in a state of low-grade anxiety? And they all just kind of look at me like, yeah.
So we are seeing many more kids coming to school with diagnoses of anxiety and depression, and we also know that the teen suicide rate from 2010 to 2017 increased.
That started there. It's very impressive. I feel like that should be the last frame of mine. Is suicidal rates started to climb. Social media started to do its thing.
People committing suicide on Facebook. Like they're posting it. You're never gonna see it.
Right. There was a lot in that one too, but y'all see the intricacies and the differences. Some of it is not all just only dopamine, it's you're seeing the effects of what is happening in your life, or what a lot of this stuff is doing in your life. So, back to the script. Now, this is another one that you're gonna see throughout this entire series. This once again is probably ain't gonna be that entertaining. I mean, it's just what it is. We're dealing with strongholds. We gotta identify you gotta identify the opponent.
Yeah.
You have to. There's no way around it. Like, you gotta find out what's going on.
Yeah. You kind of always in hand.
Right. We gotta know how to effectively deal with it. So a good verse to keep in mind was that.
Even at church.
Yeah. A good verse in mind, keep it that. I don't know if you just wild, but it is what it is. He that has no rule, now I ain't gonna read Mac read from this.
He that has no rule over his own rock is like a city that is broken down and without walls.
Say it one more time.
But
Go ahead.
he that has no rule over his own rock is like a city that is broken down and without walls.
Now we're talking about a stronghold, but then you got the stronghold of the Ruach HaKodesh. Because if you don't have rule over that the Ruach is going to be like a city that's broken down. Which one would you rather stay in? Would you rather stay in a fortified Ruach? Hallelujah. Or would you be in this one we just not been dealing with for the past I don't know how long this for so far? Right.
And I'm thinking about when you said the fortified Ruach, I'm seeing it as a ruach that a lot of stuff can come, but it's not gonna enter. But then when you have no rule and you have no one, then everything can
Oh
go.
yeah, anything. Everything.
Wonder why your kid ain't working out.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Yeah, when you don't have nothing, it is what it is. Anything now, well, it's kind of like when we're dealing with entertainment. It's like you know, I'll say it towards the end. Just once again, I'm trying to reserve my opinion. I'm looking at it and I'm saying, all right, both sides is telling me to look at this, put this up, put this verse up, right? So we're just gonna keep it like this, and the information will do what's speaking to you. All right, here we go. It said, children obviously have a responsibility to push away from this behavior, right? You got your own responsibility. It's understandable. But guess what? Guess what, Jordan? Guess what? Jerry, guess what? Parents. Here we go. We can talk about the situation, we can talk about them, but we also got to make sure that we're responsible as well, right? Parents also have a responsibility as well to be the light and an example to your children, correct? Correct. All right, here we go. We'll pick up kind of where we left off, but it ain't gonna be long.
And that's when everything kind of skyrocketed.
I'm addicted to my iPad.
I'm addicted.
Adults, not just teenagers, are also addicted to their phones.
Parents are the primary determinant as to how a kid uses technology. In other words, if we want our kids to be consuming technology differently, we first need to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, would we want them using their technology exactly how I do?
The race for attention has to get more and more aggressive, and so it's not enough just to get your behavior and predict what will take your behavior. We have to predict how to keep you hooked in a different way. And so it crawled deeper down the brainstem into our social
Dude called that the first video we lost volume on. He says it's like it's the race to the bottom of the brainstem. I was like, dang. That's what this dude said, Tristan Harris. We'll get towards the end, y'all. So here we go. Let's go ahead and get some of this medicine in. All right, Ephesians 6:10 through 13. This is gonna be now. We talked about what Uber brought up a couple weeks ago with the commandments. Now we had what Ori brought out last week. Dealing with Shiach, right? Oh but during the lesson, you know what I'm saying? You still brought it out during the lesson. Obviously, it was in Luke, Matthew, Mark that you brought out the information. And please go check the notes. It's already there in the chat from Safaret. Hallelujah. All right, let's go ahead and get it read. Since you talked about it, go ahead and read it good and loud. Then I'll get you to do the next one, Texas, okay? All right, Matt, go ahead and read Ephesians 6:10 through 13.
Finally, my brethren, be strong in Yahuwah and in the power of his might. Put the whole armor of Yah, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness in this world. Against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of Yah, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand.
Hallelujah. Having done all to stand. Have you done everything? If you armored yourself up, you've done everything that you could to stand up against the principalities, these powers, the rulers of darkness. You stand.
Armor's heavy. He didn't say you back.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you're operating in the power of his might. You're in the power of his might. Hallelujah. All right, Tess. Go ahead and get this one for me, please. Ephesians 6:16.
Above all, take the shield of belief, wherewith ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked.
How many of them?
All the fiery.
How many of them? All. All I gotta do is just deal with the shield of belief. Belief. Thank you, I appreciate it. Alright. Aaliyah, please read Rock 27:12.
If you be among the indiscreet, observe the time, but be continually among men of understanding.
It says, only for a short time, or does it say continually? Continually among people of understanding. To me, what that means is, make sure that you incorporate being around wise people in your time. Even if you're young, you're 20s or whatever, doing your thing, you're living your young life. Just make sure you get the opportunity to be around wise people.
That was right there. If you don't remember the rock that observed the time, I think that's something that we, as adults, as well as children, need to be aware of that, because sometimes you have like friends that, you would say acquaintances that you may kick it with here and there. You may see them out somewhere, or maybe just like the barbershop or the nail salon, or like little places like that you go, and you may know that those people. But if you know that this is the description of them, the beginning part, then you're going to want to observe the time. That's why you have people like, oh, look what time it is. Okay, 7 o'clock, I got to go. Because you're not going to spend that much time in the company of someone who's not discreet. Because that means you got to watch everything that you say. You got to watch everything. I mean, you're like, anything can go bad. But when you're among people of understanding, then they're going to discern certain things and be able to give you wisdom to certain things instead of just filling you up.
Now liking that into what you're going through. Now liking that what you just said into what we're talking about.
Yeah.
If you can apply that, because that's excellent. Do use the same thing for what we're talking about here. In other words, if you're on social media or you're around people that are possibly discreet with your information, as soon as it's online, what happens to it?
Well,
everybody knows.
Yeah. I mean, everybody knows, so you have to be like, do you really want to put that? Do you really want to put that on the internet? Do you not? Like, what are your, and who are you putting that, like you said, out to? How much time are you spending on that platform? Because again, if you're not being filled up with wisdom continuously, I mean, I know some people have Facebook pages and that's all it's dedicated to is to the word, but you can get tricked up because then you have people that come in that are just malice.
Right.
And they want to argue or debate something, and so now it takes away from what the platform or what you're going on there essentially for anyway.
Thank you. Now that's now we're finally here. I talk about it. I like what is my opinion? It's likened to the same. It's okay. These platforms exist, you guys. You can use it for bad, or you can use it for some good, right? Obviously, you can use a platform, and like you said, have our BBI. We got one. We got Facebook. What are we talking about? We got a Instagram. We still got one. We got YouTube as well. So it's just it's like there is a level of this. If you know how to deal with it responsibly, in my opinion, go. But be aware, there are social scientists that are hired for hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, that are geared towards making it to where you are going to be hooked. And I mean incredibly hooked, okay? Yeah. So if you operate under that understanding, I think you know how to operate, right? But don't just be, otherwise it's easy to see when you got hooked. It's easy. It's everybody loves it. You'll be lethargic. You ain't gonna be a go-getter. You're not gonna read a book at all. You probably don't care if you read a book at all. You're not gonna be doing the things that are productive for you to make it into the next day. Or deal with the future. Make future plans and stuff like that. Nah, you're gonna be looking for the next hit.
Yeah, I was an addict. I was one of those ones. You sitting there having a little Facebook arguments, trying to act like I'm super smart, but all I'm doing is looking up stuff, right? And post it. Yeah, eat that, and then it's like a big back and forth. And then if they don't hit you back right quick, man,
kind of anxiety, a little bit of just push out of it, a little bit of depression. Yeah. Just hits you right in there instead of tackling that thing at the base.
Face knowledge. It's not like you really have this knowledge. You're just using another source of the internet to go find it and then post it like you already know. Right. You don't really know this stuff. You just know how to search it. That's it.
Something they were talking about was the bell, the notification bell. I think that one is like, the way they created that. Because sometimes you turn on your phone and for something specific, right? You say, oh, I need to research this or whatever. And then you have that notification. And so you go on it. And then now you spend, and you're like, oh man, I didn't even do what I was supposed to do on my phone. You know, that you just did.
I took it on my notification. I mean,
yes.
I found it out too.
Yes, it's overstimulating. If I had the choice, and I tell people this all the time, people used to always say to me that I need to get hit with the time because I don't like the internet like that. Like I just don't. I would prefer that if I didn't have to have this, if I have a landline, I would prefer to either have face-to-face interactions or to be on a landline. Like this, for me, is anxiety wrapped in itself. Like the fact, so I turn my stuff down. I don't even like to hear the phone ringing. It's always a spam call, or it's always some random something coming through. It's just like it's never quiet. So sometimes I'll tell the women, I'll be like, I'm gonna turn my phone off. Like if my family, if everybody's home, somebody else in the house has a phone, this right here, this is bothersome. So for me, if I can just shut it, you just feel so much more at peace when you don't, when you're not on it like that.
It's like try your best to use it as simply a tool.
Yeah.
Not for if you can. I mean, you can. Once again,
you don't always need a help.
If you want to do your entertainment, I'm just saying that like push more towards it just being a tool versus entertainment if you can. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to sit there and control every aspect. No, I'm just saying that like if you can push it towards more of the utility of things versus the alternative of just straight entertainment and all that. If you do, you got it. Well, we've always talked about this. Are you eating the food or is the food eating you? You know what I'm saying? Are you watching the Netflix movie or is the Netflix movie really watching you? They got you. You cheating or is cheating you? You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's all
like we talked before and it was like, okay, well then sometimes you have to like dedicate a particular device to a particular thing. So like instead of watching stuff on my phone, then I'll use this only for calls or for Telegram if I need to communicate my phone, then I set this off to the side, right? If I'm gonna watch something, like I'm just speaking, I have to program my mind like that. Like to be like, okay, I'm gonna use my laptop for this.
Because if you don't program, who will?
None of them.
No, they just not saying it. He said, my major competitor is sleep. The CEO never said, that's my own. Who says that? You don't have no real competition in business. So, my competition is sleep.
But the cell phone industry and that, they go hand in hand. And it's like, I need a newer version of the iPhone to be able to keep up with this because everybody else is on this. And if my service is faster, that's why I got 5G.
Yeah.
You know, and 5G is horrible. I have a 5G phone, but it's always at 4G for some reason.
Right. Yeah.
We make a point, for example, as I told you like a long time ago, when we go eat outside or when we eat at home, like to not have the phone. He doesn't want the phone at the table or whatever.
Right.
You know, because I mean, we saw that couple one time we went to eat. You remember? No? At that Thai place or whatever. And we saw that couple with one or two children. The one was an older teenager, like I would say 17, 16, 17, and he literally at the table had his headphones on and he was on his phone. Like the whole time of the dinner, and the parents were barely talking, and we looked at them and we were like, please don't switch up. It's it's just like there was no interaction. So when they talk about like there's no one-on-one discussion, it's really the case in some families. They don't talk. Like they don't talk.
What y'all think about the three dudes sitting in the circle with everybody on their phone? That's
the friends. That's what he said. Like, let's get together to be on that phone.
That's interesting.
It's weird. But at least they were together. So you're hoping that they leave the phone.
But you're on social media to be what?
I know.
Social.
To be
That's the point of the word.
Social anxiety. The social disorders and I watch, my kids like I watch crime shows and a lot of those crime shows are due to internet. And how people don't understand that emotions.
These last two is closing. Another deal. Let's say it all together again. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear Elohim and guard his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For Elohim shall bring every work into judgment, whether every secret thing, whether it be good